Welcome to Chat with Nomads, where we uncover travel insights, business advice, adventure stories, and lifestyle tips with world travelers and digital nomads. Here is your host, Rax, from nomadsunveiled.com.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Chat with Nomads. Today we have with us Lars and Shelley from LifeJourney4Two. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Rex.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Why don't you start with like an introduction of both of you and a bit of the background story?
So I'm Shelley, this is Lars, and we decided to start our travels back in 2017. Well, we decided in 2016. We were just sat down one afternoon and we said, let's just, it was raining outside, sat on the couch. What's our hopes and dreams for the future? What do we want to do in the future? So we started writing things down, and after a while we realized that everything was, I want to go here, I want to go there, I want to experience life there for a while, and everything was travel on our bucket list. And I don't know who said it, but we just kind of looked at each other, and it was let's just do it now. Like, what? Why wait? Let's just do it now. We're like, yeah, why not? So we saved like crazy for about 9 months, I think. And we both gave up our jobs. I was a teacher and Lars the health and safety manager. And that's where it started. We actually only thought we'd go for about a year because we thought our funds would run out. But once we were about 6-7 months into the trip, we realized the funds were going a lot further than we expected because we're pretty frugal when we're traveling.
That's rare.
We were in a motorhome, so we were cooking all our own food and weren't having to pay for accommodation. And then we also found something called trusted house sitters, which we thought, oh gosh, you can actually stay in people's houses for free and just look after their pets. And we saw they were all over the world. So we thought we could actually stretch this out a lot longer. And then we started the travel blog because we couldn't find things that we wanted to know while we were traveling, especially as older travelers, mature travelers.
Yeah, sure. That's a better one.
Yeah, and so here we are 4 years on and no end in sight. We had to, Lars is working at the minute. His old company offered him some work, which was perfect in this time of COVID. We were actually in Africa when we went into lockdown COVID. And that was the beginning. And there's still loads more to happen in the future.
I'm sure. Yeah, I would like to talk a bit more today about van life for sure, because you guys are obviously like the on-the-road travelers where you go in a car or van and you travel around. But let's talk a bit about the beginning as well, because you guys are from Australia originally, right?
Yeah.
Nice. And do you mind if I ask how old are you guys?
I'm 54.
I'm 52, soon to be 53.
Nice. So I understand that when you guys started, you guys made the decision and then there was actually a 6 to 9 months buffer. I'm just curious what happened between the 6 to 9 months. I assume you guys are preparing for the trip, but what are some of the preparations that you guys actually did?
Yeah, well, after the initial decision was made, obviously we had to knuckle down and do some savings. You know, if this was going to be a long trip of, like Shelley said, at the initial year, well, we needed to prepare and save up. And we decided that maybe when we left Australia, we might move to another part of Australia when we came back. So we decided, well, instead of burdening ourselves down with things, let's say, we said, look, we can always buy things later on if we need to. So let's sell everything. Let's just minimize what we have. So we got it down to 2 check-in bags and two hand carry bags. And so for the last 4 years, that's how we've been traveling.
With all our worldly possessions.
Yeah, I think that's nice, right? I guess, I'm not sure if you feel it, but for me, I also carry like one backpack, which I check in, and the day pack, and that's all I carry most of the time. And it's kind of refreshing because you know that you don't have that much stuff to have to carry along or to have to protect per se.
Yeah, absolutely. And it took Lars did about 4 or 5 empties of his shed. I think that was the hardest thing for him to gradually be so like, okay, I'll get rid of that pile, sell that, and then it took a few more weeks and you'd have to go in again. Oh, okay, maybe I can get rid of this. I think that was the hardest.
It's a process, definitely.
I can understand that. What's because you strike me obviously as a very handy man that is very hands-on, and probably the mechanic that's dealing with anything that has to do with repairs and stuff. What are some of the things that you are so-called hoarding onto usually?
Well, I'm pretty attached to my chainsaw, which I couldn't let go. But that's back in Australia. Obviously, it's not here with us.
That was not coming with us. I put my foot down.
Look, the stuff that I didn't want to let go, and it's more along the lines of the photography equipment and all the electronic media that you sort of need when you're on the road. Just to keep up good communications, being able to capture photos, store your photos. So that is our precious stuff. Let's say that we're very careful with. But clothes and all shoes and all that sort of stuff, very, very low priority for us.
We still have a few screwdrivers and torches, lots of torches.
Well, in Africa, the good stuff doesn't just happen by day; it's night as well. So, we bought a 4-wheel drive in Africa, so and that's still down there at the moment. So after I finish work here in Norway, we will return to Africa and continue our travels. So. That is our mobile home, let's say, for the moment, for the next few years at least.
Yeah, it's 4x4 with the tent on top.
Yeah.
So that's our home.
I saw the introduction video to the vehicle and I was very intrigued by it. Yeah, and I'm also keen to find out more about the motor van you guys had while doing Europe, because those are 2 different vehicles, right?
Definitely, yeah.
One's a lot more luxurious, that's for sure.
From the pictures, when I look at it, I kind of assume that's the case. But so back to trip preparation, right? Were you guys planning like a target amount to save before you set off on the trip? Because obviously budget was on your mind based on what you mentioned.
No, it was just to save as much as we could. I mean, we don't spend much anyway. We're not really, I don't know, what do we spend our money on? I suppose we used to go to the movies a lot, so we cut down that. We didn't eat out much anyway. But no, it was just to save as much. And obviously selling everything, we were getting money too.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things for me, when my nan had passed away and when my mum had passed away, they'd left me some jewellery, which I always just kept in a little box. None of it fit me. Their fingers are smaller than mine. And I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? It's memories of them. I never look at them really. They're just in a box sitting there. I can't wear them. I suppose I could have had them, widened or whatever. But I thought, well, what better way for me to remember them is for them to contribute to our trip. So I did decide to sell, apart from one ring I did keep. But I sold those, and that was probably the hardest thing for me, was thinking, because you feel you should keep them.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And but I made quite a bit of money from those, and I thought, no, this is good. They're contributing to my lifestyle now.
I guess that's also the new generation thought of switching from materialistic possessions to creating memories, right? And obviously the memories will be like your travel trips and memories will be with you forever.
That's it.
Exactly.
There's not been one day where we've doubted what we've done. People thought we were crazy at the time, and still some people say, oh, you're crazy. We either get you're crazy or you're so lucky, but there's no luck involved.
Yeah.
You could do it too, and the people who say it to us have houses, and that they could do it. They could sell their house, or they could even rent their house out. But I think a lot of travel, is a choice that you make. And yeah.
Yeah, we've often said to people, look, you don't have to commit to year-long travel. You can just bite off a little bit, see if it's for you, and you don't know till you try. For us, it's worked out great, We come to Norway every year. I do some contract work, and then we go back to whichever part of the world we're traveling through at that time. So, it's great. And also you need a break from traveling. You do get travel weary, or we do anyway, just being on the move all the time. You just need to stay in a place. And as Shelley mentioned, we do the house sitting, which is great because we can just have a base for a while, So it's worked out well for us, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic finding that.
I was wondering because I saw the breakdown of on your blog where there's how many months at which place, right? And then I saw this 8 months stop at the French countryside. I was wondering, what are you guys doing for 8 months in the French countryside? So it was basically more of like taking a break and,
Yeah. And that was where we really started to work on the travel blog as well. But that had always been on my bucket list, was to live in France for a while and speak French. And that's what we did. So we lived in we weren't actually in the chateau. We were looking out of the chateau, but we lived in a beautiful carriage house beside the chateau and had 3 beautiful cats and 7 sheep and
wow,
8 chickens. So, which kept us busy, but it was just beautiful walking in the countryside and immersing ourselves in the village. It was a small village in the Dordogne, France. And sometimes, you can rush through places too quickly, whereas we really got a feel of what it was like to live in France. And in a little village, and we got to know all the different kinds of people there and the foods, and so it's still travel, but it's much slower pace, I suppose.
Yeah, we're just not passing through.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice place.
Yeah. And we've been lucky in a way because we, like I mentioned, we come to Norway for many months normally in the year. House sittings provided us great opportunities just to drop the bags for a while. And in South Africa, we're in, how long was the lockdown? 5 months?
5 months lockdown,
7 months?
But we were actually there for 7 months.
Yeah, 7 months in lockdown, more or less. But 5 of that was in a home near the desert, and the other 2 months was basically in Kruger National Park. So, you can have some great opportunities.
That house sit was I think we were meant to do 6 weeks of a house sit, but because then South Africa went into really big lockdown, the people we were sitting for couldn't get back. So we were there anyway. So we ended up staying in their house for 5 months.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And then they had been in their kind of like holiday home, which is in a bush camp beside Kruger. And they said, well, let's swap when we finally, people still couldn't travel, but then you could apply to something from the police that you were changing residence. So we swapped and we went to the bush camp, which was just the most awesome experience ever.
Wow, sounds like you guys had a good time during the pandemic even. So that's
We felt really bad. So everyone else was like suffering during the pandemic, and we were like, wow, we couldn't have been luckier, really.
Like the bush camp, it was just the 2 of us in the camp. There's no one for miles around, We were just isolated, so it couldn't be a better situation for us.
Yeah, and there's no fences, apart from elephant fences. So we had hyenas coming through, baboons. I came face to face with a leopard, which was pretty scary. The wild dogs. It was just, and then you'd wake up in the morning and look out, there's a couple of rhino wandering by. And it was just incredible. Just incredible.
That sounds nice. Now I'm envious because I've been in the city for quite a long while now, and I'm definitely missing like nature in general.
That's our go-to. We realize we're not city people. We're definitely out in the bush, kind of nature. That's where what we love to photograph. and where we love to be.
Makes us feel happy.
Yeah, that's our happy
Which is the
place.
whole point.
And when you guys were in Australia, were you guys in the city or like more of a countryside area as well?
No, we were in the city. So, but we used to go away every weekend
Ah,
camping.
nice.
Yeah, so we'd camp and go on the beach.
And is that, I reckon that's part of the reason, but why do you guys choose to go for a camper van lifestyle instead of, any other form of travel? Is there a particular reason?
Well, when we first left Australia, we spent a year in a camper van, and
in the motorhome.
Yeah, motorhome or camper van. So our first year of travel was in a motorhome / camper van. And why we took that decision was just to give us flexibility, like where we wanted to go and when we wanted to go, and rather than have to be worried always about check-in, check-out, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever it might be, was one part of it. Also, just to be more careful with our money. Yeah, we made an initial outlay for the cost of hiring the camper, but then we could manage all our own costs with regards to fuel, food, anything else outside of that. And like I said, it just gave us so much flexibility. So we could stay longer in months in countries that we prefer to, like we spent 3 months in Greece. You have total control over what you do, and you're not driven by hotels or pre-booking this or that, and total freedom. And that was the first year. It was the step into sort of longer term travel. And being in Europe, it's all pretty safe and
not too much off road.
No. So it was the first step into longer term travel. And the motorhome, as you probably know, are all kitted out. They got shower, toilet, cooking facilities, and it's a small home, let's say, on wheels. But it worked out great for us. We got a taste of traveling around and doing our own thing, and then we thought, gee whiz, let's have a go at this, stretching it out a bit longer. So that's what we did.
But Africa is different, because if you just got a you can get a motorhome in Africa, but you'd have to stick to all the main roads. And we knew that we wanted to be able to go off into on the tracks that aren't so well travelled, let's say, and be able to go off road, which is why we bought the 4-wheel drive with a tent on top. And it's actually a tent you can get into. I was a little bit worried before we actually got it, because there's different types you can get, and some you have to climb outside to get into the tent on top, whereas ours, you're actually inside and you can get in. So as you climb in the back, it kind of lifts up, and so you're already within, so you don't have to get out and climb down to get dressed or anything. So that makes it a little bit nicer.
For sure, I can imagine if it's raining and stuff and you have to go from the outside to get into the tent, that would be quite difficult, right? And I saw the video of it. I thought it was cozy, but it did look small though. Like when I look at it, I was like, oh shit, this is a bit too small. But then it looks very cozy though. And I was quite sad I didn't see a video on the one you guys had for the European trip, right? Because I was very curious to see how the interior actually looked like.
Okay, yeah, that's an idea. We can put that. We've got a few photos.
Yeah, I guess early in the camper van days, we had no idea that we were going to start up a travel blog. So we were quite random with taking our photos and videos, but Shelley kept a diary. And so we have all our memories that way, and not anywhere near as many photos back then as what we take now. But now that we're full-time travel bloggers, then obviously we've had to change what we do, and there's a lot more interest. You don't see things, you look at things now. It's a totally different perspective. Yeah,
for sure. And for the camper van, for the motorhome that you guys had, that was a Class B, right?
Yes,
I assume.
Right.
Looks like it. Yeah, and you guys actually decided to rent it rather than purchase or do a modification or anything, right? So that was how much did that actually work out to per day? Because hearing from you guys, it seems to be a real budget saver time flexibility is one thing, but it also seems to save a lot of budget compared to staying in proper accommodations.
I can't remember exactly how much it, I know on one of our posts I've broken it down how much it costs when we were in Europe. I can't off the top of my head.
But we couldn't buy. We did actually look at buying. But actually I'm saying the wrong thing. We could buy in the Netherlands, but for the price you paid for a 20-year-old vehicle, we decided it wasn't worth the money, because then you have to on-sell it afterwards. Plus, you're looking at potential problems for a 20-year-old vehicle for a pretty high price. So we decided, look, let's be fuss-free. Let's just rent. Let's start out and just rent and see how things go. And we went down that route. And I think for us, it was fuss-free and enjoyable travel for the first year. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd previously been on a trip when I was younger, and had bought the motorhome, and it hadn't, I think, a month in, it needed a new engine. So it ended up costing a lot of money. And so we just didn't want that stress as we went through, and we wanted to have a new model, which would have been really expensive to buy. So yeah, that's why we decided to go that route in the end. We did halfway through look at maybe buying one when we thought we were going to be traveling for a lot longer. But it just was too difficult. We tried doing in France. Someone said, "Oh yeah, we'll definitely be able to sell you one." And then in the end, no, they couldn't actually, because we couldn't prove that we'd been living there for 6 months or whatever it was. But in the end, it worked out fine for us. We bought a car afterwards, and we road tripped and house sat in the using the car for 18 months. We slept in the car. So it was our motorhome for a while as well.
Well, whilst we were working in Norway, we finished in, I think, end of August. And this is back in 2018 when they had their great summer here in Norway. So we road tripped all the way from like more or less southern Norway, following the fjord, up through the fjords on the west coast, all the way up to Lofoten. So we spent a few weeks doing that, in the great weather. And so sometimes you just decided you didn't want to go to a hotel and you could crash out in the car, and that was okay.
Money.
I can imagine Norway definitely is a good place to do like a motorhome, right? Because the nature is great, and accommodations and prices are expensive there. So obviously, if you don't have to pay for accommodation, that saves a lot as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the Norwegians themselves, lots of them have motorhomes here. Yeah. So they travel around the country themselves by motorhome.
Oh, that's interesting to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been to that part of the world yet, but because it's very expensive.
It's not as expensive as everyone says, actually. Everyone's like, "Oh, Norway is so expensive." But definitely
it is more expensive.
I think Switzerland was outrageous for us. We thought Switzerland was incredibly expensive. I think the accommodation here in Norway is expensive, but the food, well, maybe a little bit more.
Look, we're careful again what we buy. It's just, I think, you could probably appreciate yourself as a traveller that you check the price out on everything. You always have a look. It's not like you're back home. You can just grab this, grab that, grab this. You're always looking at it and thinking, well, do I need it or do I want it? It's that sort of scenario. So,
yeah.
Look, in any sort of country, you just got to, gauge the price on things and make a decision if you want to buy it or not.
When we were in Iceland, we lived on. Iceland was another place where the food was incredibly expensive, and we hired a car. That's right, we hired a car in Iceland, and we stayed in B&Bs. But in the morning, and we stayed where we always had breakfast. So, and of course they have cheese and bread, and so we'd get our breakfast and then make cheese and ham sandwiches, which we'd then eat for the rest of the day. So I think we were 2 weeks in Iceland, and all we ate were ham and cheese sandwiches. Because we just couldn't afford anything else.
Yeah, I think that's a common story I hear from people going to Iceland. That's why I was like, shit, the nature looks very nice, but it seems like you really have to save on the food and stuff like that, because otherwise you're going to burst your budget, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We arrived back in the UK, and I think we were in a hotel the night before. I think we were flying out somewhere else. Maybe it was Pakistan or something. And we went to this all-you-can-eat buffet, and we piled our plates with vegetables. It was like, oh my God, we've missed this so much. We just ate vegetables till they were coming out of our ears.
Sounds like you guys have mentioned a lot of the pros and the reason of why of doing doing a van life, right? Because the flexibility, the cost savings and stuff. What are some of the challenges that you guys face? I'm sure there's some difficulties in terms of other stuff.
I think coming from Australia, we by default drive on the left-hand side of the road, and we started traveling in Europe on the right-hand side, and just changing from a car over to an 8-meter long camper.
Yeah.
And basically we had a 2-hour handover from the depot where we picked up the motorhome, and they sort of said, ran through everything very quick. Here's the keys. We'll see you in 5 months by. And then suddenly the reality hit, like, oh, gee, like you're so used to car size on the left-hand side. Now you've got to reboot that habit that you've set into place for how many years and think, oppositely. If that's such a word.
Absolutely.
It is,
Well, it's
now.
understandable.
It is now.
Yeah, anyway, yeah. But you get my drift, You've got to do the unnatural thing. You got to, for us driving on the right side now, looking at the opposite way when you're turning, when you're crossing the road, everything was back to front. And plus, like I said, you've got this 8-meter long camper. So when I'd wiped out, what didn't I wipe out there for a while? I mean, the first week, Shelley was navigator.
I was in
many a
tears
day
most of the
was spent in tears.
Oh gosh.
Because being navigator, I she has to give me directions, and using a GPS on the phone, sometimes it locks up. It's not behaving itself, and I need an answer now, not getting an answer. So I have to be a bit, how do you say, bit sharp, not directed at her, but the fact that I need to know where am I going. And so, yeah, for the first week it was a bit hectic, but after that things got a lot better, and then soon, we hit our groove, and that was
got
it.
a system going.
Yeah, so that was one of the challenges. What was the other one?
I thought one of the challenges would be us together in such a small space for 24/7, but that actually wasn't at all. And even in the 4x4 that we've got now, which is tiny, like you said, it really doesn't bother us.
I guess because we're out all the time.
Yeah.
Unless it's raining, we're not hanging like, at home you lounge around at home, or we don't lounge around in the camper van or in our bush camper. Like we're out doing things. And I think that's maybe the difference. And when you come back, there's always things to do. You got to prepare the meal, you download your photos, prepare for the next day. What's happening? What do you think we might do? So there's a lot going on. There's not much sort of just lounging around.
No, I think one of the worst things is rain. I hate it when it's raining.
Yeah.
When we had the motorhome, it was fine because you snuggle up inside. You still got everything there, your toilet, your shower, you're self-contained. Whereas now, if it's raining, you still need to go to use the toilets or the bush, whatever. Camper. Yeah, with the bush camper now. When it's raining, it's not so much fun, because you're outside most of the time. So we have got an awning that we put around, but still, I don't like it when it's raining.
I think also that one of the other challenges in Europe was every country has a different language. So, I mean, we try to learn a few words, the courtesies, it always goes a long way. And after that, we got pretty sharp with our sign language, So another thing is filling up gas bottles. Each country seems to have a different adapter to fill up these portable gas bottles that you need for cooking. So that was a bit of a learning curve for us as well, because in Australia everything's standardised, but in Europe, they don't seem to have a common standard. Seem to have all their own little individual type rules and regs and that sort of thing. But look, we we didn't find any real big negatives out of the travel. I mean,
I love the van life. Just that freedom, even with our little 4x4, with the tent, that's like our little home, and that becomes home, and everywhere else around you is kind of home as well. I don't know, it's just that freedom of being out there and part of everything.
That's a very interesting perspective, because I'm surprised you guys didn't mention a lot of things about like the lack of infrastructure being confined to even for the motor van. It sounds to me like you guys found it like almost like a luxury, right? Like you have no issue with like smaller space, or like a toilet that is more portable, or like, having to empty the toilets and stuff like that. All those seems pretty common for you guys really, especially now that you kind of so-called downgrade to a smaller space in the camper van. That sounds like luxury even.
Yeah, I mean, I see our little one that we've got now as luxury, because we don't have the ladder on the outside. We don't have to climb up the outside. We don't have to put up a tent. We just kind of like the tent just pops up. Some people have a four-wheel drive and they have to actually put wires in and make their tent, whereas ours just pops up and we're in. So it is luxurious compared to. We always look at the good side of what we've got, and other people have got things that aren't as easy to pop up. So, but we do miss it. We can't wait to get back to Africa.
I really like what you said about, in the camper van, you see almost like your surrounding as a home space, because obviously the van itself is small, but there is that feeling. Whereas obviously if I'm staying in a house, I wouldn't say that the street right next to me feels like my home, right? There's a wall there and I'm like, okay, that's public, this is private, right? But whereas there's this perception whereby anyway, there's not a lot of people around, I don't reckon. So you're parked there and you'll be like, well, this area around here kind of feels like home, you can set up chairs or whatever and just sit around.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and you feel part of it. You feel part of the big picture of everything.
Amongst nature, I guess, and like we mentioned before, that's what makes us feel good. That's what makes the travel for us so fulfilling.
And how's your travel style like? Because the way I see some of your articles, I think a lot of them were catered towards hiking and the outdoors, which seems to be what you guys are saying as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. And for Europe, I understand that you guys did like 23 countries, was it? Or more?
Yeah.
And it was both Western and Eastern Europe.
Yeah, it was really interesting. We did the France and the Spain and the Portugal.
Yep.
But I think the ones that we liked the most were as we went more into Eastern Europe.
Yeah, the Balkans.
Serbia.
Yes,
Serbia,
exactly.
Bosnia. Then we went down through Albania.
Yeah, because those areas are not as common for people to. I mean, like Western Europe, where van life is quite common because, like you say, the infrastructure and to find resources is not actually that difficult, and it's also perceived to be safer. Whereas, of course, the Balkans is supposed to be like so-called a more rough part, although I don't really feel so, having been there myself as well.
Yeah.
But did you guys find it a bit more challenging to find stuff there in terms of resources, or was it also quite straightforward?
No, I think I can't remember. I think we wild camped more. I always remember one night I think it was Bosnia or Serbia, where we'd wild camp and somebody in a car pulled up at about 1:00 in the morning, kept the engine running. And we were in the middle of nowhere. I did worry then, but nothing happened. They just drove away. So, but no, those countries were actually the most friendly, I think, of all Europe. The people there were friendly. They'd work. We had there was a lady with a donkey and sticks on the back of her donkey and drove by and she waved, and it wasn't scary at all, really.
No, and I think we go on our gut feeling when we travel as well. If it doesn't feel good, we just keep moving on. But challenges, I can't say we had any. It's not as, let's say, as polished maybe as some of the Western European countries, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have, the necessary infrastructure in there. But really, as Shelley mentioned, we wild camped a lot, so we weren't in campsites and that sort of stuff, and it wasn't an issue. We used to sometimes just ask people, "Hey, is it okay to stay here?" And they say, "Yeah, no problem." That was it, sort of thing. So, yeah, I think a lot of Eastern European countries are pretty safe to travel generally these days. I don't think there's too many issues, or you don't hear so much from them as of the old days.
I've still got a lot to write about them. But as you know, when you're blogging, you need to put SEO and how many people are likely to want to read it. And still people are wanting to read about France and Portugal and Spain rather than Albania, Serbia. But they're on my list. I've just done a schedule of which post to write each week, and they're still on my schedule.
But that said, I was also thinking, because there's obviously a high demand of search for the popular countries, right? Because that's just where everyone is swarming to. But then again, the keywords ranking are way harder to achieve compared to, say, the Balkans. I think that is for me, I put up an article on Serbia before and it ranked pretty fast just because not a lot of people write about it. So I kind of think especially when you're talking about van life in Balkans, I hardly see that, to be honest. I think that's really, and I reckon that's the thing, right? There's not that much information online. So when people search for it, they really want to find articles that has, the tips of doing van life in Balkans, and you guys have done it.
No, it's on my list to do because I've just been looking through all our old photos as well, and we had a particularly moving experience in Serbia where we went to we'd heard about this little tiny chapel that had bones in it. We didn't really know anything much about it.
Skulls, you mean?
Skulls, skulls. And it looked like it was all closed up, and we were just about to walk away, and I thought, I'll just try the handle. And it opened, and then somebody opened it from the inside. I thought, whoa. And it was this, like a captain.
Well, there were people in different military uniforms. So and they were having a closed ceremony, celebrating some of the fallen. And so this church with all the skulls around it, and it looked like from different facets of the military, maybe Air Force, Army, and such like. But they broke into song.
And they invited us in. They said, no, it's okay, come in.
Yeah, and we thought, we're obviously intruding. We should start to back away. But they said, come in. And then they broke into song. It's like, oof. It was amazing.
And it's a really tiny place, and it kind of echoed, and the skulls were in the middle, and everyone was stood around. It was incredible.
Oh, that sounds
I still need to write about that. There's so many things that happened. It's like,
Eastern Europe's great. I don't think you get the populace, the same amount of people that you do, in Western Europe, and that for us is a bit refreshing. You get a bit of your own space, and it's nice, and it's a bit more random and a bit more wild, and that's sort of what we like.
That's definitely the same vibe that I get, because I haven't actually done a lot of Western Europe, because most of the places that I've gone in Western Europe are always overly touristic. Like I go to Rome and I don't feel the vibe of Rome. You go there and you look around, everyone is a tourist, and then you're just walking amongst tourists, and you're like, okay, you're there to see the structures, but there's just nothing, that triggering about it. Whereas places like Bosnia, especially Sarajevo actually had a very strong impact for me. Because their conflict history is not that long ago, right? So even the youngsters have their own first-hand experience, and they have their own stories. So when you go on, for example, walking tours and stuff like that, and the person is sharing it, they are sharing from a first-hand experience, and it feels a lot more different compared to a usual tour guide sharing a history, right? So when I was there, there was just a very impactful feeling about it because you can really feel every individual story being unique and different.
Absolutely. We felt the same. Our tour guide, we did a free walking tour in Sarajevo, and the guy who did it was telling us all the stories about how they were schooled in their basement of their apartments, and one of the people who lived in the apartments was a teacher, so she'd take them all down to and then how they'd run to get the water, and it was, and I think all through those countries we had stories. In Albania, in the walking tour in Tirana, they all could tell about the oppression that they'd been under, and things that they'd been taught as well under the communism system, and what they'd believed, and it was so interesting to hear those stories.
I think because it's first-hand information, they're talking from their own experiences, and it just makes you stop and really listen and absorb.
Yes, it's way more captivating for sure.
Impactful.
And it's hard to believe that it's that kind of thing was happening in their lifetime. When they're way younger than us and they're talking to us, and this is something that happened. It's not before we were born, or a long time ago. It's still fresh in so many of their memories.
And it also makes us, because Australia is also quite a safe, well-developed country, right? Singapore is as well. So it makes me feel grateful. Sometimes, like, I was thinking, so the guy might be talking about him 10 years old, like trying to hide from bullets and stuff. And I was like 10 years old, I was probably lazing around, eating snacks and whatever, and just enjoying life as a kid, and you just feel so grateful about your life, that you're like,
definitely.
there are actually bad things happening around the world. And in terms of traveling in the Balkans or traveling as a van life, were there like breakdowns to the vehicle whereby, it was difficult to repair and stuff like that?
No, nothing major.
With the van, because we rented, we had a late model vehicle, and one was a brand new one. The other one was maybe a year old. And look, they had full breakdown service within Europe, but we did not have any dramas at all. Nothing that required us to put the car in or the van in for service or anything like that. So not really many stories to tell on that front.
That's good though, actually.
Yeah. Look, we do have a couple of stories when I used to like to look out the window as well while I'm driving, and a couple of times we hit the crash barriers, but not just up the side of the van. It was a bit of minor panel damage, but
luckily we had travel insurance, and our insurance company paid the excess on both times.
Yeah.
So it sounds like renting is actually really convenient and fast free. Like, would you say for someone who, I haven't done van life, but I'm always keen to explore it, and would you say like the best way to get started is actually obviously just to rent one and just make sure you are covered with any accidents and stuff?
Yeah, definitely.
Do a short-term trip. Maybe try it for a weekend. See, is this for you or not? Some people find they don't like to drive around and live in that confined space. For others, it's absolutely fine. So I guess have a little taster first, a weekend or a week, and go from there before you commit to a long trip where you find that this was not a good decision. But
and everyone kind of does van life differently. I mean, we met loads of people who had these really fancy motorhomes, but they never used their toilet. Like they didn't use their toilet, whereas we used the toilet all the time. Lars emptied it, obviously. The running joke that he dealt with my shit all the way through Europe. But we find that really interesting, that people have, traveled for like 3 months and never used their toilet, and definitely not for number twos. It's like, wow, this is bizarre. You've got that luxury. Enjoy it.
So I assume that the premise is that they didn't want to empty the toilet, so they tried it.
True.
Got it. Is it that difficult to do though?
No, no, we just open the lid up and pour it out and put the lid back on and wait for it to refill. It's
okay.
You know, I mean, that's the whole idea of having a motorhome, isn't it? To be mobile and off the grid. So I mean, but a lot of these people they prefer to not wild camp and stay in the camping sites with all the facilities, so they can make the choice to not have to empty and just use the on-site toilets in the campgrounds. So when you're wild camping, obviously you need to sort that sort of stuff out yourself. So,
and in Europe, are there places whereby it's illegal to wild camp, or like you always have to find a campground, or most of it was okay, like you can park anywhere and it's fine?
It depends. Country by country is different. I think more countries are saying that wild camping's not legal. Most of Eastern Europe, we were able to wild camp, but I think mainly Spain.
maybe Switzerland.
Yeah, Switzerland. Greece, we wild camped a lot in Greece, around the Peloponnese, on beaches, and there was only us and the beach, and that was fantastic. So, but
we also use an app called Camper Contact, and this not only gives information on paid campsites, but also places where you can wild camp, and people can give feedback on this app. So that was a really helpful resource for us to sort of plan where we were going to stay the next night. Sometimes you needed to go to a powered site just to, use facilities, for example. But a lot of the time we chose to go to these wild camping places, which obviously is free. So the app helped us out immensely.
Oh, yeah, that sounds useful for sure.
Now we're in South Africa, you're not allowed to wild camp. But a lot of the campsites are quite basic anyway. Mm-hmm. So we have our bucket now rather than our luxurious toilet. We have our bucket and we have a little stool that's got a hole in.
Okay, I know that one.
Stool, yeah. So that's pretty cool.
And what triggers you guys to plan for like the next destination? Like, what do you look for? Do you look for like specific hiking trails or certain culture that you want to see? So what factors do you consider when you determine like where to go next?
Well, it's just, it's a quick one. Where do you want to go next? And then we decide, and then we, like, for example, after Africa, when we finish that in a few years, then I think we want to scoot over to the US and Canada. And because, there's some great scenery to be seen.
Yeah.
And we just have a general view. And once we get closer, then we start the planning. And the planning, more time goes into the planning for us than the actual trip itself.
Well, for you, Lars does all the planning. I just kind of
especially
tag along and just go. Yeah.
But okay, some people might choose to do it differently, but for me, you got to you plan for everything and what might happen, and that basically ensures you're going to have the best time you can, and without mishap. And also, if you're spending your money wherever you go, you want to know that you're spending on the right stuff and what you exactly want. So planning is super important.
I think especially in Africa, the practicalities rather than what do we want to see. I mean, we look at what we want to see and things like that and what scenery, but we ask the locals. A lot of the time it's when we get there, what do we see? Not before we get there, but a lot of the beforehand planning that I think Lars is talking about are the practicalities. Do we need extra insurance when we get into that country? Do we need what's the carnet to get into that country? Where are the nearest? If we break down in that country, what's going to be? So those are the kind of things that you kind of look into as well.
Yeah, you're talking about Africa here. Yeah. Because we're not in a group, travel with a group of people. It's just the two of us. So, if something happens, what do we do? It's just playing that sort of, or asking yourself that question all the time. Is there a way we can get out of this, or what happens? So there's a lot of thinking in the background, but once you're there, you enjoy it. And people generally are good on the road. I have to say that. And like I said, we go with our gut feeling. If it doesn't feel right, we'll just keep moving.
Yeah, that makes
Don't
sense.
ignore your gut feeling, you know.
And I assume there's no timeline to this, right? You guys are just going and like whenever you feel like it.
And that's one of the reasons why we decided to buy the 4-wheel-drive in Africa, because we didn't want to have to be on a time frame.
Yep.
We wanted to be able to just stop and go and not think, oh, we've only got this for a certain amount of time. We need to do this. We wanted to know that we could keep going as long or as short or whatever we wanted to.
Yeah, and that's why we talk about years, because we're going to need that amount of time and not rush it. You know, enjoy the experience, and it takes the time it takes. Once you own a vehicle, well, that's the major outlay financially, you know, and then it's just a matter of just ticking through and just enjoying it. So
yeah, because I was wondering just now, when you guys rented the motor van in Europe, was there like a specific? Because I think I heard you guys say 5 months just now, right? And you guys made a round trip starting from Germany back to Germany. So you had to actually specify a certain timeline. And are you able to extend while on the road, like halfway through, you'll be like, call them and, hey, we want to rent it for another 4 months, or it's not possible?
Yeah, no, we do. So we took it initially for the 5 months.
But that was because we're from Australia, I sort of worked out how many kilometres we're likely to drive and I totally messed it up, basically, because
that's normal.
Because
actually,
I thought we'd zip around Europe in something like 3-4 months, you know, given like distances and all this sort of stuff, and no chance. So what we thought was a long 5 months, we needed to at least double that.
Yeah. So, but we also then realised there was like different designs of motorhomes, and that we'd prefer a different design, which is why we could have just kept that one and just kept on going. But because we wanted to swap out, we needed to go back to Germany to give that one back. And then we went to a different company to take the new one. So we swapped over all our stuff into the new one. Then we drove all the way down to near Frankfurt to drop that one off, and then we caught a train back up to Hamburg to carry on in the one that we just transferred all our stuff into. So
that sounds like a lot of hassle. What exactly is so different about the two models that made you guys go through that whole process?
There were a couple of things. One, the bed. The first bed that we had, I can't even remember. We had to climb up onto it. I can't remember. It just wasn't comfy.
Yeah, I think the first motorhome was a baseline version, and so you know after a while you can work out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and things didn't. Yeah, we're a bit of a hassle. Yeah, that's right. We didn't have like a bit of cooling with the vehicle and that sort of stuff. So anyway, we had that vehicle for 5 months. The second one we took from a different provider, and we took it for 7 months, and they actually upgraded the vehicle for us as well. So we had a bit of luxury, and that didn't hurt us too much at all. So I guess, you know, some things you like, some things you don't like, and you only know that once you experience it for a period of time. Then you know what to look for the next, you know, camper van that you're looking at renting. You can be specific about what you want. So that's why I mentioned, you know, maybe if you take a camper van for a weekend or a week, then you get to know, oh, no, this is important to me. That's important. I need to look for this or that. So it sort of gives you a baseline, I guess, to work from.
Yeah, that sounds like good advice, definitely, because it's almost like buying a house, right?
Yeah.
You won't really know what exactly matters for you until you have kind of tried it.
That's right.
Yeah. Got it. And now that you guys have gone to a smaller size camper van, right? What are some other things that might be a hassle that you face apart from obviously the toilet and the showers?
It's a totally different setup.
You're outside more under the awning, because you can't really, in the evenings you'll sit inside, but you couldn't really do that. There's nowhere to put your cup of tea or anything when you're inside kind of.
I mean, we're camping now, basically.
Yeah,
we're full-time camping as opposed to a camper van where you do have the option to sit outside, but it's just as comfortable to sit inside. So you don't really have that luxury of sitting comfortably inside a four-wheel drive. So if you want to lounge around and that sort of stuff, you have to go out and, you put out your sunshade, your chairs, and it's outside living. It's not a challenge, but it's just different. And so I guess it depends where you like to draw the line for your own comfort. For us, it's great fun. And the big thing is we're amongst the animals, in Africa. And, you can't hear the noises and the sounds and be amongst it inside the vehicle. You need to be out, you need to see it, hear it, smell it. It all stimulates the senses.
Yeah, sounds like a very immersive experience, actually.
Definitely.
And how do you guys handle, because the work stuff and, Wi-Fi and stuff like that?
Wi-Fi was difficult in South Africa.
We start with Europe first. When we arrived. SIM cards. Okay. Well, we had a real issue getting a SIM card. They don't freely hand them out in Europe. I think First of all, when we arrived, we had no communications. We had to rely on free Wi-Fi and cafes for a first month, maybe. And I think in maybe Slovenia, maybe we picked up a free SIM card. And then later on in Belgium, you just show your license, driver's license, passport, and we got 2 SIM cards, in the Orange network. And that was great all over Europe then. But it was a real hassle for us for many months, just being able to get a proper SIM card so we can communicate. Countries don't freely hand it out unless you have residence there.
Might have changed a bit now, but Germany, the first place we were, there was no way they were giving us one.
Yeah. But this is in most countries through Europe. They just said, if you don't have residence, we don't give you SIM card. And that was it. So quite challenging.
That's interesting, because I did get a SIM card in Germany. I didn't find it a really big hassle, but I thought it was very expensive for Western Europe. But I can definitely see the technology changes in this space, because now you have companies offering international SIM and eSIM cards that are cheaper for, I think if you go to Balkans and stuff, it's still cheaper to get a local SIM just because, cost of living there is low. But I reckon if I go back to Western Europe, I will never get a local SIM. I will definitely get a regional SIM from one of these international providers.
Yeah.
I think those are great. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you need communications. That's vital these days when you travel. You just cannot be disconnected, It just, because, whether you're getting security updates or, whether you need to quickly check something, when you're traveling. So it's necessary. I think in South Africa, well, I know that it's super expensive. Yeah, super expensive. And I think you'll find most travelers will have the same story. You don't spend hours uploading your photos or anything like that. You wait maybe till you stay in a hotel with Wi-Fi, or you leave the country to do a lot of your online work. It's costly. It's costly, yeah. But again, necessary. You just got to be careful, how you use your gigabytes.
And how do you guys cope with seasonal weather changes I don't reckon there's a lot in South Africa, right, in terms of seasons, but in Europe, obviously, there's the change. Do you guys drive through winter, or do you try to head towards wherever is warmer?
We don't mind. Go with the flow. Depends when.
I prefer going where it's warmer.
Look, the whole aim is not so much that we drive for better weather. It's what's happening
in that
season. Like, for example, it could be wildflowers over here. It could be a migration here. That sort of defines how we pick where we're going. Obviously, if it's nice weather, that helps too. But that's secondary. So and look, coming from Australia, we know sort of a bit of the cold, but we also know the heat. So it doesn't throw us too much,
But is there heating in the motor van?
Yeah, we got a sleeping bag.
Okay. But in the daytime, so you guys just cuddle in the sleeping bag while it's cold?
Yeah, we'll have our own sleeping bags. But no, look,
only because he jiggles too much. We're in the same bed.
Yeah, in the same
okay.
bed. But look, you can always put on more blankets. It's not an issue. When it's hot, you get hot.
The heat is more. We did buy a fan to plug in for the heat. Then, because you're in the tent, it's obviously gets quite hot in the heat. But yeah.
Look, we're willing to make the sacrifices for the experiences we're having, and it's for us. It's a small sacrifice,
Yeah, I can see you guys are not really bothered by it, to be honest.
No, not in the least.
They're like, that's nothing. That's just part of it.
Yeah, of course it is. You got to roll with it. There's some things that you can't change, and weather's one of them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And are there any particular things that you guys find different or maybe unique as more mature travelers?
Unique, I guess, for us, we find that people seem to have more time to talk with us, and vice versa. We're not in a hurry. We find like people our age, maybe a little bit older as well, tend to take the time to talk a bit more, I guess. Is that generalising, is it?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's hard to say.
The good thing is we're still pretty fit, because we see, there are some, not so much in Africa, but when we were traveling in Europe, a lot of the motorhome crowd were older than us. We felt really young. So, for example, we would buy a couple, 91 and 92 they were. They were amazing. And they would go off every afternoon on their little electric bikes. And they'd sometimes bring us back a little cake and come and chat with us. But to them, we were like babies, So it's actually quite nice in Europe. We always felt really young. But we're quite fit. So there's nothing that we can't do, really, that youngsters would be doing. And when we find
no daredevil stuff, but
yeah. So I think it's great that we're doing it now, and we haven't waited like a lot of people until they've retired and maybe haven't got the energy or the stamina, the fitness, the health to be doing what we're doing. We're lucky that we can, climb the 300 steps up to see whatever still quite easily. Because that was a big difference. I think we see in Europe, a lot of people weren't doing the things we were because they were older. But compared to young backpackers, say, I think the experience is the same. We're young at heart. We still feel like we're young.
I definitely feel the vibe from you guys.
When we had our camper van in Europe, we had a couple of bikes that we had with us, and we had a bike rack on the back of the camper van. So we'd park that up, and then we'd bike it everywhere.
Wow.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. I was just going to say that instead of driving through towns or cities, if we wanted to duck in, we'd take our bikes, because number one, you don't have to contend with traffic and parking and all that. And number two, we got the fitness benefit and just the freedom again to duck here, duck there, lock up the bike, go into that place, go into that museum. It just, again, gives you more options.
Yeah, you guys are definitely doing a lot of like physical activity just by traveling itself. Like it's built into the whole schedule and flow of things. Yeah. So, I was just curious, when you guys decided to do the trip, were you guys in a retirement mentality, or was there ever a plan on like, we are going to retire by 70 and then we might do it when we are 70? Or was it just, what's kind of the mindset and thought process when you guys decided to go for the trip a few years back?
Well, the idea was we allocated X amount of dollars for the initial travel. And we said, look, at the end of that, we'll just stop the travel, go back and do some more work. Again, look at getting full-time jobs. But as it turned out, my old company that I finished up with, they want me in Norway every year. So we travel, and then I fly to Norway. We have a break from the travel. We top up our travel funds, and then we continue what we're doing. So really, we've sort of changed the initial plan, whereas we thought we'd wait till the end for our money to reach zero for what we'd saved up for the traveling, to now being sort of perpetually topped up through the year, or for the small amount of time that I work. So that's enough to keep us going. So do we have an end date or year in sight? No, it's more like, okay, what do we want to see next, and when do we want to see it? So it's all sort of open now. That initially, I guess we put a finite time on traveling because the money doesn't last forever if you're not topping it up. But now we're in a situation where we can top it up, and that keeps going. And I tell you what, traveling is a lot more fun than working.
That I agree.
But we were never, we weren't thinking of retiring or thinking of, we were going to be working till 65, 70.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't something that was, it just, no, we just that afternoon. It wasn't even, we didn't talk about it before that. It was just that afternoon. What do we want to do in the future?
Yeah.
And then it was like, let's just do it.
That's very cool, because I think there is always that inherent desire already, which it makes it easy to just be like, it's really more like you just needed a trigger whereby your partner is saying it and you guys agree and you're like, let's just go and do it.
Yeah. And my boys, the youngest one had just finished school and he was planning to go to university in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
The middle one was he was at uni already in Perth, Australia. He was just planning to do a year in Canada as an exchange student. And the other one lived on the other side of Australia. So it was kind of like, well, they're off going to be doing, their things, not. And now with technology, it doesn't feel, I probably sound like an awful mother, but I don't really miss them because we've got FaceTime, we message on Messenger and I can see all three of them at the same time. I get more out of them than I ever have done at home. If I was seeing them at home, I'd probably, see them every now and again. I'd get a grunt and we're doing this, that. Now, I get a lot more information from them and they're really proud of what we're doing as well. Where are you now? And it kind of it's kind of like role modeling. You can do whatever really at any time. And I think they're quite proud of what we're doing. And, I don't think one of them would rather I was at home. Occasionally you want to be able to give one a hug. If one of them's upset or something, you just want to give them a hug. That's the only thing I miss. Other than that, you talk to them, you see them. So I don't miss them because I can talk to them whenever. I sit down, a cup of tea, talk for an hour. It's so different nowadays.
When was the last time you guys met them face to face personally?
Would have been not this Christmas, the Christmas before.
Oh, that's okay. That's not too long ago.
No,
we sort of managed to see them once a year or something.
No, once every 2 years.
Once every 2 years. Yeah. Well, it works.
Yeah, whatever works for you guys, right? I think that's the main thing. There's no one standard method to do it. Like every family dynamics is different, and it's just whatever makes sense. Yeah. So to conclude, what are some of the tips that you guys would give for someone looking to do van life, like if they want to just get started, trying to get on the road and travel, what are some things to look out for?
I think the main thing is to just have that mindset that you're doing it. Don't think about it too much. Just decide and go for it. Really. I mean, what can go wrong? Yeah, like the worst case, you end up going back and
I think maybe rent before you buy as well.
yeah, maybe rent.
You know?
So
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
but just do it.
I think maybe if you're going to start out, maybe followed some of the well-trodden roads first of all. You know, keep things easy, and then hey, once you build up your confidence a bit, if you want to, you know, go down the less travelled road. You can't just. I don't think anyone just leaps off and goes into the bush and you know, starts their travel that way. I think you got to be a bit streetwise and a bit more comfortable with what you're doing, and have a bit of confidence in yourself and what's around you, and then, you know, go and do your thing, whatever that might be.
Yeah, that sounds pretty casual actually. Like for you guys, it definitely sounds like a go for it and deal with whatever comes, you know, like whatever happens, you will be able to cope with it anyway. So it's a lot of a mindset mentality thing, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like life, isn't it? You know, life will be shit sometimes, but you'll get through and you build resilience from those shit times. It's good to have shit because that's where you learn, you know, and the same with travel, any type of travel really. You know, it's never always going to be roses all the time. You're going to learn, and you're going to learn more about yourself. You'll learn more about what you like. For example, I mean, I'm 54 now. When we started traveling, 49, 50? I never really realized how much I loved nature and wildlife. It'd always been there from when I was little, but I'd never really followed that passion. I got caught up in life, with kids, working, teaching, and you don't have time for that. But when you immerse yourself and you go out there, and it's like, oh, what do I like? I mean, it sounds ridiculous that a 50-year-old finding out what she really likes at that age, but life catches you up. It takes you along with what you're expected to do, you know, and really there's no time. Just follow whatever it is you want to do, whether it's travel or paint or whatever, just do it and don't think about it and go out and experience lots of different things.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think like it's very easy for us to get caught up in life and you know, just forget about things that we really want. But then again, it's also like, I think these days there's also that mentality that, you know, people should discover what they want at a very young age, which is actually never really the case. Like you really go into life and start trying different things and, you know, experiencing, and what you want might even change across the years, right? As
absolutely,
your life progresses. Yeah. So it's really a bit of the mindset of at that point in time, you know, go for whatever you think makes sense that you want to do. And I think that's like how you live life to the fullest as well.
Yeah. And there's never any wrong choices. There's just choices you can then change. You know, make a decision, do it, and then if it wasn't, you know, you've learned maybe that's not your path. Choose another one.
But in saying that as well, like I said, there's a lot of planning behind the scenes. It's not just stepping out blindly, you know. But yeah, make your choice, stick with it. If it doesn't work out, guess what? You've tried it, you've learned. That's not for you. Close that door. The next one opens. So it's you know, opportunity after opportunity awaits.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you, Lars and Shelley, for coming on today. A lot of interesting stories that you guys shared and valuable information.
Thank you, Rex.
Yeah, thanks, Rex.
Thanks for having us. It's been fun talking.
Thank you for listening to Chat with Nomads. Please remember to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And be sure to share with your friends. Also, we'd love to know what topics you'd like to hear more about. To stay updated on the latest, join us on our mailing list at chatwithnomads.com. You can also find more travel and nomading tips at Nomads Unveiled. That's NOMADSUNVEILED.com. Start living your dreams today. We'll catch you in the next episode.